You are listening to The Michael Lodge Show. Wealth, business, and taxes. Oh yeah, and some politics. Let's get started.
And good morning, this is Mike Lodge. I'm glad that you're up and at 'em. No matter where you are in this great big world of ours listening to this podcast, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Listen, I'll give you a little bit of time to go get your cup of coffee. In fact, you know what? If you know I'm on, and if you're listening to my podcast, you should automatically have a cup of coffee in your hands. I don't want to have to give that lecture. I am happy today's Friday. I mean, I look at my desk. In fact, I'm trying not to look at my desk. It's right off to the left of me. And there's a pile of work there, and I don't really want to do that pile of work. But I have to. I got to get it done. I got to live up to my responsibility of saying I get things done. No, I'm almost done with this one project I'm in. In fact, I'll finish it today, and then I can literally sign off on it. And I am done. Bye-bye. It's get done with. Listen, you know what? I've been sitting back and listening to a bunch of politicians and a bunch of individuals in this country who do not know what racism really is about. The problem with the word racist or racism is that it has now become a political tool. It's a tool that is used as a political attack on anybody who does not agree with how the other individual thinks or the political agenda that they're trying to push. So the problem is that the words racist and racism is used politically and not really to talk about pure racism or true racism. And we have to admit there is racist people out there. There are individuals out there who like to push that agenda. In fact, usually it's the individual who's using the word racist a lot in their vocabulary, in their sentences, is the exact person who is the racist. And that is the problem, because now, since racism and racist is a political term, it's no longer about the true discussion of racism. Now, I'm going to age myself, okay? Because, okay, let's just admit it, I'm old. I'm decrepit. But I've lived through a period of time where I saw racism. I heard the racist words, the racist attacks on individuals. And when I lived through that, I knew immediately that it was wrong. And so did the American people. They knew that it was wrong. And they wanted to correct it. Now, a lot of you are so young that you've never lived through a period of time where racism was so rampant and so ugly and so dangerous. When I was growing up, there was an individual who was a governor of Alabama. I saw him on the news for several weeks. This governor, his name was George Wallace. He ran on a political theme, and it said, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And he tried to make it so that the blacks and the whites could not mix together when they were going to school or any other place in his state. He stood at the auditorium of a school blocking the entrance of blacks. And there were two black individuals, and I want you to remember their names. Vivian, Malone, and James Hood. The governor stood in front of them and said, "You're not welcome into this school. You're not allowed to go into this school." But they got in. because there was the support of the community around them that said, and also the legal community that said, you have to let them in, and they went in. I remember, to this day, I can still see it in my mind. You don't even have to play me a video. I can see it in my mind because I watched it, I heard it. I saw the injustices that this individual was trying to do in the name of racism. Now that is true racism. That's not even political racism. That is just pure, downright evil racism. And the American people saw that too. And they said, let's do something about it. Let's get some laws on the books on civil rights and the rights of all Americans in this great nation to vote, to run for public office, to go to school, to go to churches. I mean, we had to do something. Excuse me. And so we did. We saw Martin Luther King, and I still remember seeing him marching on the streets. I remember it as a child. We used to be a political family, and we would sit there on Saturday afternoons after we've stuffed ourselves with food, talking about all sorts of different issues in politics at that time. And we knew on racism that something had to be done, and something had to make us say, okay, enough is enough. We failed in our past attempts. Now we got to make something right. And so the whole discussion of racism began. Laws were put on the books to protect the civil rights. And so we moved forward, and we have been continuing to move forward year after year after year after year. Now, is there still racism? Yes. Is it rampant throughout the United States? No. Are there individuals who are racist? Yes. And there always will be. Because, and I'm going to get biblical here, when the devil sees evil, he uses it. And when he sees people who are racist, he uses them. But the problem that we have at the moment is that the word racist or racism is no longer talking about racism. It's no longer talking about the core issue of racism. What it's been used as by politicians is that it is a political tool to attack. So they use those words to attack other individuals who do not believe in the same political agenda that they're trying to push. And some individuals use those words of racism to better themselves. They push the agenda because they're making money off of it. It happens in this evil world of ours, but it happens. But I have this true belief that America is not a racist country. If we were a racist country, and I've heard this argument used before, we voted in a black president for 2 terms. We have voted in black members of Congress, and they have been there for years and years. We are seeing very highly educated blacks coming from our colleges who are putting back into our nation. They are serving our nation. They are creating businesses. They are becoming doctors and lawyers and physicians and engineers and school teachers and everything else. So what happened way back in the 60s, 50s and 60s, and the work that has been done since then has given the word racism less meaning. Because we're working together on that issue. And listen, if you want to come on to my show and talk about racism, I invite you, because that is the only way we understand where racism is happening or going on in people's lives, I want to talk about it. And that's the only way that we can solve problems is by talking about it. When you come to me in mediation, the whole purpose is to talk, is to get your point out there. And it can be done very civilly. But you see, the problem is that politicians use racism as a tool for their political agenda. Not your agenda, but their agenda. If you want to have a meaningful dialogue on racism, then let's sit down and have that dialogue. I want that dialogue. If you want to do it on my show, let me know, and let's sit down and talk about it. But if you want to push it as a political agenda, then I don't want to talk to you about it, because politics is so corrupt and so evil that it disrupts the true discussion of racism. Because now, anybody can be a racist. If I don't like you, I can call you a racist and get away with it. So stupid, isn't it? We have got to become better human beings in this process of democracy. This attack tool that you are using in the name of racism is an incorrect attack tool. It's wrong. It's unethical. But politicians are unethical individuals. Let's admit it. What have they done for us lately? Oh, there's a song, huh? What have they done for us lately? I think there's a song like that, right? But really, what have they done for us lately? They've driven up our debt. They've created political nonsense using the word racism. They have increased our participation in wars. They have literally destroyed an economy based on bad numbers. They have taken away a lot of our freedom. So I ask you, what has politicians done for us lately? Absolutely nothing. So do not allow them to use racism or calling you a racist. Do not allow them to do that anymore. If anybody attacks you using that attack back, but with logic and with civility. Do not allow people to misuse the words racism or racist for political gain. We are not that kind of a country. We're not. We are not that kind of a country. But Biden, even Joe Biden, he uses the political tool of racism for his own advantage, for his own political agenda, and Americans fall for it. Stop falling for that crap. I think you need to go back and you need to study the time period of this country where we addressed racism. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but karma is really a bitch, because you know that George Wallace guy that I was talking to you about? That racist, I mean, he truly was a racist who wanted to segregate blacks and whites from each other. That guy, karma was a bitch to him because somebody came along and shot him and he never walked again. He was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. That is karma. But he tried to destroy individuals' lives based on racism. Politicians use racism. And by the way, George Wallace was a Democrat trying to segregate blacks. His name is often forgotten, but he was the racist of the racists. And he was a Democrat. You cannot take those words and use them as political gain. But politicians do it all the time, and they try to convince you of it, and they try to sway your opinion towards theirs. But I'm telling you, if a politician comes out and says it's racist or it's racism that's the cause of the issues, walk away from him, because he's nothing, or she is nothing but nonsense. And they're using it as a political tool to divide. Because they know if they can divide, they have much more power base. They have much more of an ability to create chaos. See, politicians love chaos. They love chaos. They create chaos. They do political attacks based on chaos and political attacks based on race, and that is nonsense. And the American people should not be listening to these politicians. In fact, you should be voting them out if they are using racism as a tool to push their political agenda. Because it's not real discussion on racism. I've been through these discussions, and I know how it goes. And I know how it should go. Because if you're not having that discussion, and if you're not making an improvement on the discussion that you had, you're doing nothing. But if you are just standing there in front of a microphone yelling racism, you're just pushing a damn old political agenda. And it's old. It's tiresome. I am fatigued. I tell you, I am politically fatigued based upon the basis of political tools of racism. It doesn't do any good. If we have a problem, let's sit down, let's talk about that problem. If you need me to come in and mediate it, I'll come in and mediate it. No charge at all. I will come in and do it for you guys. But I'm not going to have a political tool called racism when it's not really racism. It's just a political attack tool. Now, a lot of you are probably out there saying, oh, this guy is absolutely an idiot. No, I'm not. Really, I'm not. Well, some days I am. Okay, I will admit, some days I am. But I have grown up through this period of time in my life, and I can still remember it. I can still see it in my head. I can still hear the words being said in my ears. I can still feel the emotions of that time when real racism was trying to be addressed and solved. Worked on, fixed, whatever we could do to make it better for individuals in this nation. But now, today, it's pure politics. And that's why I hate it when companies try to become woke. Because they are not driving a discussion, they're driving a political agenda. When people try to drive a political agenda, nothing ever gets done because it just keeps driving down the road. Same size, never gets bigger, it just goes down the road and people keep using it, but they never talk about the real issue of what racism is. But companies use it as a political tool, and they should not be involved in politics whatsoever. Politics in the corporation or in the business creates conflict. Nothing ever gets done, but they create conflict. Where have you seen Coca-Cola go into Chicago and place a distribution or a manufacturing plant in the center of the black community so that they could help that community? When have they ever done that? They have done nothing like that. So they use the words racism, but they don't really try to solve it. No, they use it because it's a political agenda for them. And to make themselves look like they are really trying to do something about it, but they're not doing one diddly squat about it. When have you seen a member of Congress or a member of the Senate who are always trying to push the discussion of political racism, but they never go to where the core issue is? When was the last time you saw AOC going into Chicago to talk to them about their problems? Never does. But she talks about it a lot. but she never goes there. She never has an open discussion. She doesn't understand what the complexities are within those communities in Chicago are. But she uses the political tool of the word racism to push her own political agenda. And she does it all the time. Not just her, but a lot of politicians. On the right and on the left, they both do it. So we have got to get away from this political attacks and using the words racism and races. We've got to get away from that because it's doing absolutely no good except dividing the country, and that's exactly what the politicians want. They want to divide the country because if they know they can divide it, then they have political power. They have a political base. So we Americans have got to start using our own common sense and start thinking this process through. And if we see racism, let's talk about it. Let's sit down with the individuals who can do something about it. Even if there's a politician that wants to get involved in racism, sometimes I think it's better that they get away. And let the individuals in that community work the process through, work the problem through, find a solution for themselves. Because politicians do absolutely no good in doing anything in black communities. Well, even in white communities, they don't even help those communities, or in Japanese, or Chinese, or all these other nationalities that are out there and who have working communities that they live in. There's no politician helping you. Nothing. No one. Because a political agenda never gets anybody anything except the politician. When you see a politician pushing a political agenda, walk away from him very quickly and say, no, politician, that's not the way we're going to do it. Because that solves nothing. That relieves nothing within my community. So shut up. Stop using your political attack tools and shut up. If you want something done, come and talk to us. Know what's going on in our community. Know what's going on. Come here and talk to us. But instead what you do, you get in front of a microphone in front of the United States Capitol building and you begin shouting racial attacks, but have not stepped one single foot into a black community or a white community or a Japanese community, a Chinese community. You have stepped in nowhere. All you do as a politician is stand there and yell racism. We are the most stupidest people because we fall for this nonsense. This nation's a great country, I tell you. I love this country because we have seen so much greatness come out of these communities. We have seen so many people rise up and do such great things. But yet we still hear politicians using the political attack tool of racism, and it means nothing about racism. I wish I could take you back to me when I was a kid and we were listening to this and watching this on television. I still remember seeing George Wallace standing there in front of that school. I can see it with my eyes closed. And I can still see the meanness in his face, and I can still see the words that he used. And I tell you, that was racism. We must take accountability of what we're hearing and seeing and make changes. That's the only way we can get through this, is if we make changes in those who service in Congress, those who service in the United States Senate, and those who service in the office of the President. We've got to walk away from this evil discussion of political racism because it's doing absolutely nothing except dividing. This country is not about division. And it never should be. But if you keep listening to the politicians, they will try to divide you more and more and more. If you are concerned about racism, sit down with your local community and talk about it. If you've seen it in your police department, sit down with the police departments and bring in a mediator and start mediating it. Bring in people who can help the community. Work at working within your community and start making those changes. If you see racism, work on it. Don't use the political terms of political hate, political attacks. Work on the issues and solve them, resolve them. Listen, there are a lot of people out there that can help you, and they want to help you. Use them. Use them. So that is my lecture for today, because I've just become so pissed off because of politicians and their political tools and their political attack tools using racism. I just hate it more than anything else, because it does absolutely no good for this nation. It does absolutely good for you, and it doesn't do any good for me, because we've got political tools, political words that are used that do not even come close to what is going on. A lot of people like to point fingers, right? Oh, they love to point fingers. So I'm going to point my finger right at the politician today and say, listen, you stop it. Stop using that political tool, because you are a divider. You're not a uniter, you're a divider. That's it for the day. I know I went off onto something that doesn't have anything to do with what I normally talk about, but I had to do it because I'm just fed up. I am fatigued. I am fatigued. I am fatigued by what comes out of the media. I'm fatigued what comes out of the politicians. I am fatigued at what comes out of the White House. I am fatigued. I'm tired of this nonsense of trying to tear down the country instead of trying to build it back up. But you and I, as Americans, have the ability to make changes. And we can do it. Every single vote that we cast has got to be an ethical vote of who that individual is and what they believe in and what they say that they can do, and hold them accountable for what they say. If they're just using broad terms, they're really not having anything to be accountable for, because they're broad terms. Drive your politicians to specifics of what they're going to do, and hold them accountable. Listen, if you like my podcast, if you like the content, and if you would really like to help me, go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge, Lodge. If you would like to send me an email or a text, well, just send me a text. Send me a text, and I always answer to all my texts very quickly. It's at 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. And I'll answer your question. If it's on business, or if it's on politics, or whatever you want to ask me a question on, send it to me and I'll try and answer. If I don't have the answer, I will try and find you the answer. That's my promise to you. Again, this is Mike Lodge. Let's all go out today and have a great, great day. Today's the last day of the week. We can accomplish something great. This is Mike Lodge. Bye-bye. This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content. God bless everyone.